recording.
Oh,
And all right. So, Zen, is it true that you guys have Venus opposite Mars as an aspect?
yeah, yeah, yes, because I'm Libra Venus and he's Mars Aries.
Okay, so I feel like whatever karma is going to come through, just because I know a little bit about your charts, is related to this axis or it's presented through these planets. So, first of all, I'm leading with um, I'm getting a lot of phlegm and cough and stuff coming up. Like it's a throat chakra thing, but I also think that this past life is from plague time. I can't narrow it down exactly, but there's a lot of sickness going around. And I do think we're dealing with two different social strata. So I think one of you was more affluent than the other. And again, we have reversed genders. I'm saying again because my first ever past life reading, we had reverse genders as well, and it's really interesting to look at it in some ways. So I think Zen, you were the guy. I think your past life name was William Zen, in that particular past life.
Interesting.
And it's a name with S for William. It's probably Sarah, which is a really common name, or something along those lines. And I'm seeing mousy blonde hair, and I'm seeing someone who's a little bit timid. So I think in this particular past life, um, you had a very weak nervous system. So I think you were from a household with a lot of people in it, but not a lot of understanding, William. So you were probably sandwiched between a few siblings, and you had to take care of younger siblings at a very small age in that life. So you were saddled with responsibilities, but like how girls are supposed to be a little bit vain, and it helps us a little bit on our spiritual path to understand our mystery and worth just by encouraging vanity and beauty. You didn't get to do any of that stuff. So you were very, in a way, withdrawn. And sometimes you would have people assert all this malicious energy on you, or maybe sexual energy on you, and you wouldn't understand what was going on. You would just freeze like a mouse. And I do think this is Europe. I highly believe this is like England, the United Kingdom, somewhere there. But for Sarah in that life, which is William now, it wasn't a very affluent sort of life. It was very much the kind of life where you saw, first of all, I think you lived in the city, and I don't think it's necessarily a good thing because you had access to a lot of people, access to a lot of diverse walks of life. But what you ended up doing was you ended up having access to seeing a lot of drunks. There were frequent kidnappings also sometimes in the area where you were, and there was this generalized sense of fear because people weren't being helped, people weren't being catered to, and it almost felt like any day you could lose livelihood. I don't think it was a family that was supported by very many good adults. And I do think that in your case, there was one person within your parents in that life who was very like, they were disabled by being a bit drunk or like into addictions or gambling or that sort of thing.
Oh,
So and for Zen, I think very, very interesting life. Like for someone with PA placements, the kind of life that you had is like very fitting. So you were someone that liked to go out and about. I'm seeing very like you even had a little briefcase thing that you were very proud of. And like there was something to do with the leather or related to that briefcase. You like smelling it every time you opened it. you were very proud of like the small fine fine things about it, like there was red threads on the briefcase or something like that, and you loved it. You loved inhaling it. You loved carrying these small little perfumes as well for a man, which is very very, very interesting. And an interest in the arts, actually. You would take out this little sketch pad and start sketching things, and that's actually how you saw Sarah in that life, you know. You saw her while you were out sketching things, and you were like, oh, she's beautiful, and all the while she's not seeing that she's beautiful, you know. So you were like, how can I help her see this? And you know, um it's almost like Sarah would have tried to push you away a little bit initially because she wasn't sure what kind of attention was coming her way. Um, and but you felt this pull. You felt this pull to keep pursuing, keep trying to engage in conversations. You would find ways to talk to her, like maybe her siblings or something, just to get to her. And she wouldn't really give you time of day because she wasn't able to understand. Um, but one thing about you in this life, Zen, was that I think that you had maybe one narcissistic parent, like, you know, very, very extreme, because even though you were an optimist at heart, um, you had this great, like, big inner child, like very creative, of course, with the amount of interest you had in arts and talking to different people. Actually, you were the kind of person, even in, you know, when things weren't that modern, you were the kind of person who would approach any man, woman, have a conversation with them, just for the love that we share with all humanities, you know, that kind of thing. You were not romantically interested in all people, but you gave people time of day. And that's why sometimes, in your case too, things would happen where people would assert false romantic interest onto you and project your kindness as interest. And I think in that life, your mother was majorly narcissistic, and she was trying to use you, um, you know, to push the family's social ambitions forward, you know. So it wasn't a very affluent family that you came from, but I think you were a great manifester in that life, you know. You wanted to learn from someone. You would get, I'm also getting that you had PA placements in that life. So either PA Moon or PA Rising again. Um, so, or maybe PA Jupiter, one of those things for sure. So you would always attract like the best teachers to you in that life, or the best benefactors. So you wouldn't even have to pay out of your pocket. There, a way would open up magically and by luck, where you would just get what you needed, you know. And sometimes it attracted even from your narcissistic parent the wrong kind of attention, you know, because she tried to sabotage you a little bit. And what ended up happening is that your narcissistic mother in that life collaborated with another narcissist who was romantically interested in you. I know this is sounding like a film plot, but this is genuinely what I'm seeing. So there were two narcissists that were trying to get you to, um, you know, get into this marriage, get into this thing. And all the while you were just like, I don't want to do things for the family name. I'm a creative, I'm a thinker. And that's also something that you did, and maybe you might start doing more now, is you liked writing essays, like a lot of free thinking, stream of consciousness type essays. I don't think they ever got published. I think they may have been destroyed, like your journals, sadly. But you loved creating a repertoire of work that was just yours to look at, you know, and that gave you a lot of introverted time in life, which people often misunderstood. Actually, they were like, is this person crazy? Why don't they, you know, crave public life more, because when you did step out, people would almost not be able to tell that you're an introvert in that life. They would just be like, wow, this person is so magnetic, and they must really enjoy all the attention they receive, not knowing that you had other plans, other motivations, other things that were propelling you forward. So yeah, I'm just seeing that, when you almost kind of in your goodness, right? In your drive to balance the issues that were happening, you neglected paying attention to your mom and that developing romantic love, the romantic angle that she was going to work for you, because you didn't want that conflict in your life. And one thing that your guides are saying is that you can't escape conflict. Even as a good person, there are certain political strategies that you will have to learn in this life to maneuver narcissists, to maneuver people who think they can outsmart you with strategy, and people who can push their agendas on you by seeing that you're busy or preoccupied with something. So you're going to have to, both of you actually, you're going to have to expand the capacities of your nervous system to do what you guys are supposed to do in this life, which you guys do have joint work to do together.
Wow.
And so, and so when you were pivoting away from that, what you were actually doing is trying to create a love connection with Sarah, where you succeeded, and you would do small things like maybe get her stuff from the bakery and just try and spend like 5 minutes with her. Is bakery a theme in your life even now?
He loves cake and chocolate.
I love it. So yeah, that's kind of how you got her in the past life, him now, to open up his heart. You were like, okay, I see that nobody's given you that kind of individual attention. I want to give it. I'm safe, right? And that's what your initial connection was just about. It wasn't lusty, it wasn't like inappropriate, it was mostly you sitting down, and almost like people approach like deers, right? Like you see Bambi in the Bambi movie. How would you approach that kind of deer? So that's what you were essentially doing, is trying to pose yourself as not a threat, I'm a friend. Like that's, and it took all your attention, you know it's something that you were really happy doing. Like that's one thing that I feel when I go back to these past lives and I see couples, it's like how happy they are taking care of the other person, and how it's totally contrary to some of the things that we hear nowadays. Like people will complain and people will say there's no reciprocity, but you see, when I see all this stuff happening, I see how both parties are really enriched by caring for the other person. And so, Sarah just felt in that life that she had nothing to offer. She's like, oh, I'm getting this attention, but I feel like, why? I still have nothing to offer. He wants my time. I just don't see why I'm special. And all the while there's like this one person who thinks she's special. So, if anybody is going to be watching this, which I think they are, it's a huge, 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 huge message, is to always strive to see how we're special, because when that person comes along that actually sees this part of us, we have to be able to accept that they're seeing that in us. Otherwise it's going to be tricky. And that's why the guides are saying for William is to list out all his positive qualities and just like magnify them, because the chances are he's still like, whatever Sarah used to do in that life, he diminishes himself a little bit even now. But to sympathize with Sarah, she had a very difficult life. This person was not given a window into better circumstances, even just around her. I was at a Tony Robbins thing yesterday, and he says how, like, in order to strive to become better or hope for better, one needs to have a good vision for this future. This girl didn't have any vision. Like, first of all, she's a girl. Second of all, she's seen only poverty her whole life and being mistreated her whole life. So what sort of thing is she even supposed to conjure up? Like, her imagination was fully blocked at that time, and we need to recognize that. And so that started developing, right? And then at some point, then you had to realize that I have to now approach my parents and speak about solidifying all of this. But your mother wouldn't have it, because she's like, I want us to be social climbing. I want to take our family from this level to the next level. And I really feel like I can get a match for you that will get more coin into our bank, and all of that. And you just weren't having it, because there's a lot of people, there's a lot of people that would agree and just have a person on the side to fulfill that. But I think your idealism was really strong, which it may be even now, but you had really strong idealism in that life, and you were like, I'm not bending to this at all. um However, I think this was also plague time. So, uh, what ended up happening actually, and this is so sad, is so we had one person obviously in more treacherous circumstances, more like let's say, like, a person who lives in a crowded home is likely to be more impacted by a plague, because there's less social distancing, more exposure to all sorts. So in this particular life, you ended up losing your Sarah. And I think that was really hard hitting, because you went into this sort of fog and depression afterwards, which people couldn't reconcile with the happy person that you used to be. And I think till date it still affects the content and the art you put out, because you could be adding more colors there. That fascination with that leather briefcase and all of that, you still have those sides to you. You just are scared to really step out into the world, find more beautiful things to look at. And I don't mean romantically, because you already have your romantic tie now, but I just mean that then in your heart, maybe you fear that you're going to go out looking and exploring, you're going to find something that you're enamored with, and then it's going to break your heart, because that's what happened. And the most unkind thing that happened after that heartbreak for you is that your family made your life hell. Like, your mother in that life made it hell, completely hell, where she didn't allow you to grieve. She was questioning why, and whether you were actually insane, whether you need to be put into an asylum. And those are such difficult questions to grapple with when a person has an immense amount of grief to deal with. Because I think for you in that life, when you saw Sarah, it's like, she's the one. It wasn't even any kind of doubt for you. And then to have that, taken away, it's it's just so harsh, I would say. And to be gaslit during that grief is that's why I felt the sense of heaviness when I came in to do this reading. I said, there's something about it. It needs to be done on either a Thursday or a Friday. And I guess Friday is the energy that can most support this, because of, the sweetness of Venus, whatever. But yeah, there's an immense shock and loss, and then being gaslit completely into believing that um my reality is not real. My grief is an overreaction. That's what you went through in that life, particularly. Um, and I just think that this past life is being shown to you because there's a lot of stuff there that you can transmute. And that's the key thing, actually. So, in a lot of ways, you guys are artist and muse. And I don't know what William does, but you know, you're his muse. And for you guys to deepen and engage in that way, you have to admit that you both play the sort of key role in each other's art, you know? Otherwise, you might feel blocked. And it is painful, especially for Zen. It's going to be really painful because you do have to go into some of those dark parts. I know I tried to do what I can in this reading, but there's a lot of work that you might just have to do going by yourself in those like underground shadow meditations to retrieve those parts of you, because what we've done now with this reading is open the door, but you will have to go and retrieve those wounded parts of you from that particular lifetime so that they stop looping these timelines of not failure but anhedonia, depression, and disconnect. Because when you're making content, or when you're, let's say, making something that could be instrumental for your business, tell me if this happens. Like, you might go blank sometimes. You don't know what the next step is. Yeah, it happens because of that. It's because a part of you is still frozen in shock. So you do need to do those meditations. I think some of those meditations might be too scary to do alone. So William has to be around you or doing them with you and doing breathing exercises with you. Because what your guides are showing me is, I think you finished your Sari Sati, right? You're fully done with it. And the next steps for you are to begin to churn all of that stuff that you learned, because they say that you have a lot going on. You have a lot of foundation from this life. You have a lot of foundation from previous lifetimes. What you just need to do is relax your nervous system and begin using that. Because what happens is you end up I think losing a lot of awareness and instinct in that when you're second guessing yourself and questioning yourself. So you're going to have to go retrieve those parts of you. You're going to have to do couples breathing exercises, whatever it is. I think both of you will have to do that. But if then you're more comfortable starting to do it for your reasons, I think sometimes women have to be the initiators in like spiritual things, and the rest just follows seamlessly. For Sarah from that life, I will say that there's a couple of things that were never experienced by the soul in that lifetime that are probably carried forward. Is this a desire to nurture other people? So whether that's some sort of volunteer work or working with underprivileged children in some way, even if initially it's just donating money to them, that's going to help offload a lot of that anxiety, at least the initial parts of it. And then I think there's a desire for more sweetness, you know, just to be not exposed to trauma back to back is what was really desired. So I think, William, you need an acupressure mat if you can get one. It's gonna help a ton. And let's see. And something about wanting to travel, honestly, because when Sarah began opening her heart, she was like, how can I how can I make my experience better? I would really like a change of scenery. I'd really like to go someplace with the love of my life. And sadly, that didn't happen. But you know, the good part about this reading is that there's no end. There's continuity, and there can be closure to those parts of ourselves that are still yearning. And you very much have the capacity and power to do that. So I guess vacation 2023 or 2024 coming up.
We actually went to apply to get our passports last week. So it's funny that you say that.
Alrighty. Okay, just to tie everything in, and then I'll stop recording, and then we can do like a debrief, honestly. And as in, like, you guys can share your experience. I wouldn't want to put that on like YouTube or anything, just for privacy reasons, right? So I'll stop recording after this portion. To tie it in, and the rest of the lifetime for you went like zen. I think for you mostly, things became really foggy from then on. You were really, really zombie-like in that lifetime. And there's a lot of guilt that you have, and there's a lot of energy within you that's like suppressed because you never got to do all those things that you're doing. And I really strongly think you incarnated with the same moon sign. I really do. It's like that much artistic continuity in your life. Like and this is, I would say that among your past lives, this is a powerful one. This is a powerful fragment of consciousness because it's a creator. It's like that magician archetype in tarot. This would have been a really powerful person, and it was a really powerful person. It's just that this person was hit at the wrong spot. The love of their life was taken away from them, and that's what weakened them. But you have better resources in your toolbox now, to not be manipulated, to not be to know how to look out for influences who would just take and take from you. But the silver lining is that you had a daughter actually, and you know those things where people just name their daughters after their first sweetheart. I don't know, you named your daughter Sarah in that life. But I think that was one of the respites that you had in that lifetime, is that you had like nice children, and that's when you sort of started coming out of your fog a little bit, and it wasn't as harsh. But for you, definitely, you had two narcissists in the family around you. They would do a lot of push and pull. So you know that mother-in-law conflict and daughter-in-law conflict. You're privy to so much of that that you just went into hiding. Family politics basically. And I would say for Sarah, it was a very sad end. And I think that's just a part of you, William, that needs a lot of prayer and gentleness, because it's somewhere there, and it's a really harsh end. Because I think with plagues, especially for the parts of the city, or places where there weren't a lot of amenities, it was really sad how they were disposing of bodies, how they were letting sick people not have access to enough things. So it was a really sad end, and this is a part of you that's going to need a lot of gentleness and prayer. Okay, so I'm going to stop recording now. You guys can share your experience with me.